moving to something more tangible. What other projects are you working on, and what are your aspirations for the coming months?
So there is another large project that I haven't spoken about during this podcast. It is a research project that is being carried out with over 4 countries. Basically, this is a part of the European Federation of Psychology Students Association. I am a supervisor for a lovely group of 8 women from all over continental Europe.
Okay.
And we are studying communities at work, and we are trying to understand how people feel about communities at work. And we are doing this research across 4 different European countries, geographical Europe, right? So we have Turkey, Greece, Malta, and Croatia. And we're comparing ideas, basically. We're asking people many questions around communities at work using different methodologies to try to understand is there a common idea about communities at work? Are people thinking about communities at work?
What is a community at work?
It's a question that a lot of our participants also struggle to answer, and I don't have a scientifically sound response to that. But what I can tell you is that if you had to ask somebody to talk to you about a community outside of work, they will be very capable of doing that. Because we associate community with something that has nothing to do with work. We associate community with our family, our friends, the people who we call when we need something. And so I think even just this distinction of being so confused about answering the question about a community at work, and then finding it so easy to talk about having or not having a community in your own personal life, is something to be explored.
As you were discussing the community, one word came up, the group thing, and actually another word, and silos. Do they play a role in this, or it's something else completely?
I'm not sure actually if they play a role in this or not. I would imagine, just like everything, the idea of the butterfly flaps its wings, and then there's a tsunami halfway across the world. So I do imagine that it does have some kind of impact. What my main idea was behind this research, and I'm very happy that there were 8 women from all over Europe who were also interested in doing this kind of research, was that we are seeing a trend in people who are spending much more time at work. So this idea of 996, working 9 a.m. till 9 p.m. 6 days a week, not having too many family and friends because they are completely dedicated to their career, their job, etc. But I think we don't explore enough what happens when something goes wrong. What happens when, like we're seeing right now, all these banks are in crisis and they are laying off thousands of employees. If you thought that was your primary community, your workplace colleagues, what happens now?
You have nowhere to go, basically.
What happens now? Yes.
Okay.
So I'm very curious about this, and a lot of businesses have based their whole employer brand on this kind of idea, come to work, we have breakfast, we have lunch, we have washing machines, we have sleeping rooms, you can practically live here, and so on. Fine. And so for the people who actually committed to that and who are interested in doing that, what's going to be the long-term effect? Because I have a feeling it's not going to be such a great long-term effect, because a business is a transaction, and we cannot forget that it's a transaction. At the end of the day, if your employer can't pay you, they're not going to give you money out of their pocket, or if they do, you're a 1 in a million, And so how did we go from a business transaction to making it very personal, and basing our whole community in that place? And how do we think that's safe for us?
It's actually a very fine line. I think I come in close contact with that fine line because of my full-time profession as an HR. It's very easy to tap into the personal aspect of the employee's life, and you might be entangled in that, which is very dangerous as well, even legally. But yes, I think most companies promote the word family. We're like a family, especially in Malta. I'm not sure overseas, but in Malta I hear this quite a lot. We're like a family here. But as we were having this conversation, I'm thinking, but what does this essentially mean? What are the family-like attributes and what are not? So I think it's a very interesting concept to think, and I think you can have more than one community at work
Absolutely.
as well. So,
Yes.
so yeah, it's a very interesting concept. I never thought about it in that regard. I've heard the word silos many times and then the us and them, but
Yes.
the word community comes from a place of well-being and sort of a support system.
Yes.
At
In
work.
fact, the primary literature search we did is I am very happy or unhappy to say that in Europe we could find no research about communities at work. We found some research in the US, which is very interesting because this makes me think about, so people in the US are thinking about communities at work.
Okay.
But we could not find any research on communities at work. So if there's anyone who's listening who has research on communities at work in Europe, I would love to, to have a copy of it. But it seems like people are not interested or people are not researching it yet. And I'm very curious as to why.
I think it will play an important role in the way we perceive work as well. And it might lead to a more accurate way of coping with some stresses at work as well, because we identify structures at work that might make us feel less happy at work. I think we can control that flow sort of, and we can then build supportive structures or measures to promote having communities. Actually, at work, and I'm thinking the way we operate at work, we have what we call them work groups. Basically, a work group is a set of employees. It's not for me, a community is more natural, and people come along in a more natural way. But in this case, people work on a particular project. So, for example, we had to create the employee handbook at work, and I sort of communicated to the employees, whoever is interested, to chip in and to have regular meetings on how to on the basically putting in ideas on how to on the contents of the handbook. Personally, I know what goes in the handbook or not, but I wanted to include the employees. So one, it's a collaborative effort, and once it's out, it's actually used.
Yes. Sense of ownership.
Yes, and very much like we have the social committee, we have other committees, as I said, we call them work groups, and through which people can come together and work on a particular project. It is project-based. It's not transactional in a sense, because either you're organizing events or we are trying to organize a CSR committee now, but at least you have a goal. It's still a project in its early stages, but I'll report the findings. They won't be scientific, but at least observations about how it
Please.
went along. Even if we run an engagement score, if you have these sort of systems, the engagement should score higher amongst employees because they feel they are part of the business. It loosens the transactional aspect that you mentioned.
I have to once again disagree with you. I really feel like a terrible guest, you know? I'm disagreeing with you about many, many things.
It's a conversation, so.
I have to disagree with you there because at the end of the day, these people are doing this particular task on work time, right? So let me give you an example.
Not all the time. The social committee works outside working hours as well.
Okay, so let's say one person on the social committee decides that they need to start working in another company.
Yes.
What happens to that social group? Will the person still be included?
No.
Exactly. So this is my difficulty with it, that it is a pseudo community, you know, where it has all the elements of a community, but only because you are part of this group at this particular moment. And there are many variables that can chuck you out of this group for a number of reasons. For example, you no longer work there, or...
But doesn't it happen naturally? I mean, if, let's say we don't have this system and communities form naturally.
Correct.
If you don't work there. Because I'm thinking on what you're saying. I do have friends that I've worked with in the past that I still meet with them as friends, and I think that is what you're referring to.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. That there are some cases where it's a genuine community and where people have genuine connections, and you know they can leave and they feel that they have friends, you know, that people that they can call, people that they can rely on, people who they want to celebrate the big things with in life. But then there are also situations where it's not actually like this, and you have this idea that you work in this environment where it's fantastic and there are these communities and you're doing all of these things, but then something goes wrong and you're out. And we've seen it happen time and time and time and time again. So this is what I'm interested in. How do we open our eyes to this? I mean, I think locally the worst idea of this for me has been especially in the gaming sector, where you have people who are super happy to go to work, they love it, employer brands, amazing, everybody wants to work there. Wake up one morning, 50 people out, you're not getting your salary. What kind of psychological effect does that have on a person? You know, and how is this okay? That for, 2 or 3 months after you have been let go for no reason, because the big bosses have been making bad decisions, you have to deal with being depressed, being without a community. You feel like you've given so much, and now you are kind of stranded. So I think there are complications in this, because sometimes it's not expected. Like we're not aware enough of how transactional business really is. Sometimes I feel like for very smart reasons, businesses keep that under wraps, and they're not going to say, yes, I will give you breakfast so that you will spend 2 hours more at work every day, So it's very profitable for a business to have that sense of community and so on. But are people reflecting enough on how it's going to impact them in the long term and how it actually impacts their well-being?
It takes effort to maintain such relationships outside the place of work.
Totally agree.
To be still part of a community, it takes effort, because it becomes friendship.
Yes.
And it's a beautiful thing. So, but it's not easy, because you're out of the circle by default, and you're meeting with new colleagues. You make new acquaintances, and so the community aspect becomes a bit blurry, so to speak. Maybe because we're not aware of it. As I'm realizing, maybe we're not aware of the impact. We're not mindful of it to 100%. But as I said, I think it should come naturally, I think.
I think there's a lot to explore. There's a lot to unpack. I think there's a lot we don't know about it.
Yes, that's true.
I could be completely wrong, and I would love to be completely wrong, that it has zero negative impact on the people that step out of a business and no longer are a part of a particular community. But I really get the sense that, the way things are going and the way people are spending excessive amounts of time
At work,
in
yeah.
one workplace without any kind of connection to friends or family or partners and so on, I think it might be problematic.
Well,
We'll see.
yeah. I think we have to be very mindful of this because it can. But I keep on thinking about the skills that you've mentioned before. Those problem-solving skills and those play a huge role in this, because if you're left without a community, you have to find the strength. And I'm oversimplifying this. You have to find the strength on relying on yourself.
Of course.
So the skills that you possess on that level play a huge role in that, because obviously that can lead to mental situations which are not as desirable. So the individual plays a huge role. But then I think, what are the skills that we are teaching people and empowering people to think in a way that they can not sustain themselves, but they can help themselves out in difficult situations?
Yes, absolutely, 100%. I would. This is what I advocate for with our own students. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me why I'm wrong. Think about it. Give me another idea, because this is what you need.
Yes.
You always need to be creative. You need to figure things out. And I think having some of these tools is helpful, because there are two kinds of people, I think, in life in general. The people who want to help you and the people who don't really want to help you for whatever reasons, So you need to be prepared for both. You need to be able to react and to still be successful and to still be happy. And when I say successful, I don't mean in any way or shape or form monetary or status or so on. You are successful based on the things that make you happy. Have you reached it? Yes, then you're successful. Fantastic. So I do think you need skills to be able to get to this, and they are not skills that you learn. It's not a mathematics problem, I can't tell you this is game theory. Here you go.
It requires so much effort. Personally, I get this comment quite a lot. I make it sound easy. I'm not sure about you, but it's not easy. As simple as it may sound, it's very complex. So, for example, self-reflect so that you can improve. At surface level, it's quite easy. It's quite straightforward. Yes, self-reflect. Okay, but how do you self-reflect? And there I quote you. There's no one size fits all. If this worked for me, it might work for you, but it might not. It might work partially for you. It's a self-explorative journey to see what works for you or not. Again, there's no one size fits all, and you can read as many books as you want. You can do whatever, but ultimately you have to absorb what resonates the most with you